Murder Inc. was composed of Jewish and Italian-American gangsters, of course, and the members were mainly recruited from poor and working-class Jewish and Italian neighborhoods, both in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and again, all the surrounding areas. It was initially headed by Louis Lepke Buchalter. He was a Jew, and Murder Incorporated was believed to be responsible, listen to this, for between 400 and 1,000 contract killings. Murder Incorporated, again, Jewish mob. They were the ones that were handling most of the contract killing. And Buchalter, he was the boss at the time of Murder Incorporated. He'd get the contract, boom, go out and do it. 400 to 1,000 people in our life. So at the same time that the Jews were coming here, getting involved in organized crime, and forming organized crime, Cosa Nostra as we know it, helping Luciano and other major players at that time. At the very same time, they got into create what we knew as Hollywood. Like them, you don't like them, you're anti-Semite, you're not, you support Israel, you don't. Tell the truth. Huge impact in organized crime, huge impact in the entertainment industry. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. All is very good, very blessed in this end. And as always, my friends, I give all the praise, honor, glory, and thanksgiving to our God for that. You know, my friends, there's been so much talk about Israel and the Jews as of late, ever since that very horrific event on October 7th, 2 years ago, when Hamas did that massive attack on people of Israel, also some people in the United States that were there. And there's been a lot of talk on both sides. People for Israel, against Israel. The latest Charlie Kirk thing was a plot by Israel. Israel's been in the news quite a bit lately. I'm not going into all of that, not at all. I'm not touching that at this point. But I do want to say this. The Jews in America have had a very big impact on two organizations. More than that, I'm sure, but two organizations that really stand out. Number one, organized crime, Cosa Nostra, Mafia in this country. They had a big impact. I'm going to talk about that. Secondly, the entertainment industry. No doubt about it. They helped form all of the big studios. No question. They've had a major impact on things happening in the United States. So whether you don't like them, you don't like them, you're anti-Semite, you're not, you support Israel, you don't, you have to tell the truth. Huge impact in organized crime. Huge impact in the entertainment industry. So I'm going to get into the organized crime part of it today. Hey everyone, Michael Franzese here, and I got some very exciting news for all you Franzese wine lovers and soon to be Franzese wine lovers. We are launching today our blackberry wine online, and that's franzesewine.com. We haven't been able to do it yet because this has been such a big seller on all the grocery shelves, all the wine stores, everywhere. We haven't been able to launch it yet on franzesewine.com, but today we launch it. So grab your bottle. Great for the holidays. People are not only enjoying the wine, but they're making flower pots out of this. They're making candles out of this. People are just loving all of our fruit wines. This happens to be my favorite. Really enjoy it. And it's launching today. So go to franzesewine.com, get it before the holidays, and we'll keep the supply coming. Promise you. And people understand this. I've said this many times. Organized crime is what it is. Cosa Nostra is what it is in this country. But they've had a major impact. They're part of the history of America. No doubt about it. They had a major impact here for almost 100 years. They got involved with the government. You know, they controlled the unions. You know, they had influence in presidential elections. They had a hold over politicians. We did a lot of stuff. I'm going to say we, because I was part of that organization. My dad was, you know that. So there's no denying the impact and the influence that they've had on the United States. It's there. And we always think of it in terms of Italians. But the Jews had a big part in forming this. And we're going to get into that today. And, you know, they all came over together, Jews, Italians, when they started immigrating here in the 20th century, you know, early, right after the 1900s, they came in. And they settled in New York City mostly, you know, all the way back east. And they started to come into the neighborhoods in Brooklyn and Queens and the Bronx. And initially, even Manhattan, initially, they were just a bunch of gangsters trying to make a living. That was it. Extortion, extorting their own people and shop holders in the neighborhoods that they lived in. Putting money out on the street, doing a little gambling, a little bit of bookmaking, just trying to make ends meet. They were immigrants. They came over here. They were criminals. They came from Italy. They came from wherever they came. You know, the Jews did. and they started to do things on the street. That all changed with Prohibition. That was the turning point. And I've said this so many times. It was the government that made Cosa Nostra and organized crime strong in America because they realized they had an opening. People wanted alcohol, and they were going to get it one way or the other. There was a demand, a need, and organized crime stepped in, the Italians and the Jews, and they filled that need, and they became wealthy. You know the story. We don't have to get into all of that. But at the same time, what was happening? There was a group of Jews, and they were tough. I have to say it. These were tough guys and Italians that they came in the same neighborhood, and they started to become friends. Namely, Lucky Luciano, Meyer Lansky, Bugsy Siegel, Lefty Rosenthal. They became friends. Arnold Rothstein. They all became friends at that time. And they started to think of ways that they can put this together after they started making so much money in Prohibition. But now, there was a lot of gang violence going on, a lot of stuff going on. So they had to figure out how to put something together. I want to talk about one particular group, and then I'll get back and talk about how it was formed. Murder Incorporated. I know I've done something on this a couple of years back, but Murder Incorporated, great name for a company, right? Murder Inc. It was an organized crime group that was active from about 1929 to 1941. And what it did, it acted as the enforcement arm of the National Crime Syndicate, which I'll get into. That was formed by Lucky Luciano with the help of Meyer Lansky, no doubt about it. And it was a closely connected criminal organization that included Italian Americans, the Jewish mob, and even some other criminal organizations in New York City and in the surrounding areas. Murder Inc. was composed of Jewish and Italian American gangsters, of course, and the members were mainly recruited from poor and working class Jewish and Italian neighborhoods, both in Manhattan, Brooklyn, and again, all the surrounding areas. It was initially headed by Louis Lepke Buchalter. He was a Jew, and later by Albert Mad Hatter Anastasia. I think we know that name. And Murder Incorporated was believed to be responsible, listen to this, for between 400 and 1,000 contract killings. Now, when I say contract killings, these weren't random killings. These were ordered by the top. Lucky Luciano, people on the top, ordered these killings. And this went on until the group was exposed in 1941, and I'll tell you how that happened in a minute. But I want to make a point here. These were contract killings, and they were killings mostly of our own. Now, what do I mean when I say that on our own? We weren't going around killing people in concerts. We weren't randomly shooting into churches. We weren't going up to people in restaurants and just blasting them. It wasn't like that. We weren't taking advantage of women on the street and killing them. We weren't robbing people of their jewelry on the street. We weren't doing the kind of stuff that's going on today. Now, let me be clear. I'm not saying what we were doing was right. Murder is murder, and it's a bad thing. But here's one thing I do have to say. We said this all the time. We only killed our own because we took an oath. We had a policy. We said that we would abide by the rules of Cosa Nostra, the rules of organized crime, meaning you violate another man's wife, daughter, sister, mother, you could pay for it with your life. You're in a business deal, you screw another guy in that life, you could pay for it with your life. You betray somebody in that life, you can pay for it with your life. You betray the oath that we took, you can pay for it with your life. And many people did in all of those circumstances that I just mentioned. Does it make it right? No, but I'm making a point. We killed our own. We agreed to die if we were to break one of the rules. It's still wrong. Murder is wrong. I'm not saying it's right. It's a bad thing, but I want to make the distinction. We killed our own, and we tried to do it, I'm going to get into this. Lucky Luciano actually formed this because he didn't want random killings all over the street. He wanted one group to take care of all the guys that had to go, in his opinion. Or when the commission said, that's it, these guys are going, that's it. Okay, they didn't want random killings everywhere because that brought too much heat. So they formed Murder Incorporated, and the Jews were a major part of that. Again, Buchalter was the guy that really led it. Meyer Lansky was somewhat involved also at that time. We'll get into Luciano's role in that. He was involved because he was probably one of the guys that ordered many of these contract killings. But what happened was it operated for 11, 12 years. Almost 1,000 people it killed. And then what happened in 1941, like anything else in that life, which is, common, a guy by the name of Abe Kid Twist Rellis. He was a Jew. He became an informant. You know, he had a lot of heat on him. Dewey was the prosecutor at the time, later became governor. He put a lot of heat on him and turned him. And there were many trials that followed. Many members were convicted and they were executed back then. A lot of them got the electric chair. And Abe Rellis, listen to this, he was under, I guess, FBI protection at the time, or whatever the group was called before it was called the FBI. And they were watching him in a building, an apartment building, I believe, and he suspiciously fell out of a couple of stories and died. I don't know that he fell out, but Thomas Dewey first became, he came to prominence really over his prosecutions of Murder Incorporated and other organized crime cases. And then he was elected to governor, I think the 47th governor of New York. So I think he even ran for president, but that didn't happen. But Murder Incorporated, again, Jewish mob. They were the ones that were handling most of the contract killing. And Buchalter, he was the boss at the time of Murder Incorporated. He'd get the contract, boom, go out and do it. 400 to 1,000 people in our life. Once again, I'm not justifying or saying was right. I just tried to make a point before. We weren't doing random killings on the street. Did an innocent person get, involved in the crossfire? I'm sure it happened. I don't have particulars at that time. I'm not saying this was a great thing when you only kill your own. Hey, that's wonderful. I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to make a point. And I think you understand where I'm going. So please don't hit me up on the comments. I know I'll get a few, but I'll respond. So what was Lucky Luciano's role in all of this? Well, he was a pivotal figure in the American Mafia, as we know. He played a foundational role in forming Murder Incorporated, but it was an indirect role in the establishment of all the operations of Murder Incorporated. And again, it was the enforcement arm of the National Syndicate. It operated for about 12 years. He was one of the architects of the organized crime structure, as we know. He put the commission together, which was the ruling body at that time. And his influence in Murder Incorporated was critical because he was very respected. And again, he wanted things organized. He didn't want random violence everywhere because anybody with a brain knew that that wasn't good. It attracts too much law enforcement attention. So he wasn't directly involved in the managing of it, but he had a big say in what went on. How did he consolidate power? We know what Luciano did. He killed his rival Joseph Masseria in 1931. Then he knocked off Maranzano in 1931. And understand that Meyer Lansky was by his side. So was Bugsy Siegel throughout all of this. I'm sure he consulted with them because Lansky was a smart guy. And he really moved it into a cooperative network of crime families. And again, he co-founded the National Syndicate, the National Crime Syndicate, which had control of all the groups all over the country. And these were all ethnic groups, not just Italians and not just Jews. And he tried to coordinate all of the activities like bootlegging, gambling, extortion, and he wanted to minimize the conflicts. And again, Murder Incorporated, it emerged as the syndicate's enforcement arm to maintain discipline. And again, this was not only Italians at the time. There were a lot of different, nationalities involved in this. All the street guys. Wasn't necessarily Italian, Jews, and otherwise. And he did it to eliminate his rivals. And he wanted to handle all the contract killings across the country would be handled through Murder Incorporated. What can I say, people? Again, I'm not saying that this was the right thing to do, but I'm saying, you got to give the guy credit in the field of organized crime because he really put it all together and he really started the real power structure of organized crime and, of course, Cosa Nostra in this country. No question about it. So, Albert Anastasia took over at one point. He was Italian. Buchalter started it. Anastasia comes first. And Luciano approved all of the operations, but he stayed in the distance because he had to focus really on the broader syndicate strategies. And did he personally carry out any of Murder Incorporated killings? No, I don't think Luciano was involved at all. He didn't need to be, Usually a boss, once you get to that point, you've killed a few people. I mean, Luciano killed Masseria and Maranzano. He orchestrated it all. But once you get to the position of boss, you're not out there killing people anymore. One of the very high profile, I think maybe the most high profile killing that Murder Incorporated took was Dutch Schultz. I'm sure you heard that name. He was a strong character at the time, but he wanted to, if I remember, he wanted to kill Thomas Dewey, and Luciano said, "No, we're not going to kill. That's too high profile. You're going to bring a ton of heat on everybody." And he said no, but Schultz said, "No, I'm doing it anyway." And that's when Luciano gave the order for Murder Incorporated to actually take out Dutch Schultz, and that was done. What happens then? Murder Incorporated is still going on, but in 1936, Luciano, he was convicted of prostitution, and it was Thomas Dewey that orchestrated that. Maybe it was a better idea if he would have killed him in his opinion after that fact, but he didn't. And he went to prison. He got a 40-year prison term, and that really removed him from all the active participation in Murder Incorporated or anything else. And then after that, a couple of years later, it collapsed. Would it have collapsed if Luciano was still in control? Who knows? Probably. These things don't last forever, especially when you're out there killing people to that extent. You know, it's like Roy DeMeo. You know, they say he was responsible for about 200 murders. You know, it was a lot. I don't know if it was 200, but, you know, Roy DeMeo was a serial killer. And you don't last. There's no question. You're not going to last when you're doing that kind of stuff. So it had to come to an end, and it finally did. And Relis, like I said, he was the guy that started it all. Dewey got to him somehow, some way. And then what happens? He falls out the window, you know. So, and when Luciano went away, things kind of started to fall apart. But then the five families in New York kind of picked it up again. He really did. So Luciano, but you got to give him credit. He was the strategic, he put together, he was the strategist. Him and Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky did play a big role. And how will we know that? Because later on, it was Meyer Lansky that negotiated the deal that got Luciano free and got him sent to Cuba. Remember that. He got him sent to Cuba as a result of Luciano's being helpful at the docks and being helpful to get the Allies into Italy, into Sicily. So Meyer Lansky negotiated that deal where Luciano would help put his influence to work both at the docks and both in southern Italy, and that got him released into Cuba. He later got deported and put back to Italy, but at least it got him released from prison, and Meyer Lansky was the one that negotiated that deal. That's how tight they were. So that was his role in Murder Incorporated, but I want to bring out again, you know, the Jews played a major, major role in that. Let me give you some of the prominent Jews at that time that were very much a part in the formation of organized crime back then. You had Lefty Rosenthal. You know who Lefty was. He was the brains. He was the De Niro character in Casino. You know, he was a great handicapper, you know, so they put him in charge of a casino. He had a lot of influence back then in helping to build Vegas. You had Bugsy Siegel, of course. You know what he did? You know, he built the first hotel, the Flamingo, at least tried to get it built back then. Very, very close to Meyer Lansky. He eventually got killed. Meyer Lansky, brains, right? Financial wizard, very close to Luciano, handled a lot of the gambling operations around the country, around the world. He was putting everything together in Cuba until the revolution, everything fell apart. And then you got Arnold Rothstein, who was really the mentor to Lucky Luciano at that time. Mentored Lucky Luciano, was a Jew. Jews are smart. You got to give them credit for that. They're smart. Whatever they get involved in, they play a big role in it most of the time, whether it be on the street or in legitimate business. You got to give them credit for that. Whether you like them or not, it's the truth. All right, so we know, you know, what happened after Luciano, and the families were formed throughout the country, 5 in New York. Of course, you had Chicago, you had Kansas City, you had Florida, you had New Orleans. And so Cosa Nostra, as we know it, moved on. And the Jews didn't play as prominent a role in that point. I think they realized that, you know what, we got to start to go legit. And they did that, and obviously they incorporated themselves into the framework, the fabric of America, of corporate America, pretty successfully. This is probably something you're not aware of, or maybe some of you are, but just how much control did the Jews have in the entertainment industry, the film industry specifically? Several Jewish immigrants played key roles in founding major Hollywood studios in the early 20th century, shaping the industry's formative years. Here's a concise list of notable Jewish founders and the studios they established. Adolf Zukor, he was a Hungarian Jew. He founded Paramount Pictures in 1912. He pioneered the feature film model, and he built a vertically integrated studio system. So at the same time the Jews were coming here and getting involved in organized crime, the gangsters, the other ones, the legit guys, were going to Hollywood. And they were forming what we know now to be really Hollywood and that whole industry. So they were doing it simultaneously. William Fox, Hungarian Jew, he established Fox Film Corporation in 1915, which later became 20th Century Fox and is now a part of Disney. So that's the second major studio. Karl Lammel, he's a German Jew. He founded Universal Pictures in 1912. It was instrumental in creating the studio system and early film distribution. So again, it was a Jew that started the distribution system. I mean, listen to this. These are all the major studios. All right, Harry, Albert, Sam, and Jack Warner. They were Polish Jews. They started Warner Brothers in 1923, known for innovations like sound in film, the jazz singer. Whether you like them or not, you got to give them credit. They were the innovators in this industry. It was the Jews that founded Talking Films with the jazz singer. They got all the major studios. What they saw back then, who knows? Louis B. Mayer, Russian Jew. He co-founded Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, MGM, in 1924, a powerhouse in Hollywood's golden age. Again, Marcus Loew, you know that, Loew's Theaters, Austrian Jew. He founded Loew's Incorporated, which became the parent company of MGM and built a chain of theaters. So the first theater chain was built by the Jews. Loew's Theater. I mean, look, say what you want, but this is what they did. Harry Cohn, American Jew. He co-founded Columbia Pictures in 1918, turning it into a major player with a focus on cost-effective production. These founders, many fleeing persecution or seeking opportunity in America, gravitated to the film industry, which was less controlled by established elites than other sectors. Their influence helped define Hollywood's early structure, but their control waned as the industry grew, corporatized, and diversified. By the mid-20th century, studios were increasingly run by boards and executives, not just their founders. But hey, I had named every major studio. So at the same time that the Jews were coming here, getting involved in organized crime, and forming organized crime, Cosa Nostra as we know it, helping Luciano and other major players at that time, at the very same time, they got into create what we knew as Hollywood. So they were doing it on the street and they were doing it in Hollywood, you know, and they had a major impact. Whatever way you look at it, they had a major impact. You take it, you know, from what you want to take it at that point, my friends. I'm only bringing something out. I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying anything. I think you know my position with Israel at this point in time. But I just thought it was appropriate to bring this to your attention today, you know, and let you know that, yeah, the Jews played a major role in organized crime, in the formation of the National Crime Syndicate with Luciano, in the formation of the Mob Commission. I'm sure that Luciano really consulted with Meyer Lansky. You know, it was funny. I had a conversation with my dad one time, and I asked him, I said, Dad, you knew Meyer, you met him. Was he really, you know, that significant a guy? And my dad kind of downplayed it, because if you weren't Italian and you weren't part of that life, you know, a made member, nah, come on, what are you kidding me? We told Meyer what to do and blah, 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 blah. I don't know if it was true or not, but I tend to think that Meyer Lansky played a very significant role with Luciano. I haven't seen evidence to the contrary. I've seen more evidence to support that. So look, you give the Jews the credit or the blame to working with Cosa Nostra at that time to form it as we know it, and as it, you know, thrived and prospered for many, many years, decades in this country, and give them the credit or the blame. But you got to say that they certainly did have an impact. And as far as the film industry is concerned, you pretty much got to say the same thing. They formed every major studio. They put, you know, Hollywood on the map. And I got to tell you something. I heard some brutal things about them, the way they treated their stars back then. You know, really, I mean, they didn't treat them well. You were a slave to the studio back then. So a lot of people didn't like the fact that the way they ran their studios and the massive control they had over their stars that they made. So, you know, it cuts both ways. But anyway, That's it. Give me your comments. Let me know what you think. What you think about Murder Incorporated. And please understand, people, I wasn't justifying anything that they did. I was just letting you know that played a major, prominent role in the formation of Cosa Nostra organized crime in this country and also in the Hollywood studios. That's it for today. I'm going to end it with a glass of wine, a toast to all of you, my friends. This is my strawberry wine. Very, very good. Real fruity flavor, like it a lot. Thank you again for supporting us in helping to eradicate human trafficking with children. Thank you so much. We've had so much support since we launched this on September 20th. Appreciate it very much. How do I always leave you? Same way, my friends. Be safe. Please be safe with all this random stuff that's going on. Please be safe. Be safe. Be healthy. A lot of controversy. Do what's right for you. Consult your doctor. Do what you think is best, but do it. Be healthy. It's important. And yes, God bless each and every one of you. Families, communities, neighborhoods. God bless America. Yes, I'll see you next time. Stay tuned. And my friends, before I go, I want to remind you, Franzese Wine, I now have a wine branded in my name from the world's oldest vineyards. We have alcoholic wine, of course, non-alcoholic wine, huge seller now. And the taste is terrific, my friends. Really, you're going to enjoy this family atmosphere wherever you want. It's wonderful wine. You're going to enjoy the taste. You're going to love it. I guarantee it. So go to franzesewine.com before we sell out because it's moving fast. That's an offer, once again, you can't refuse with a taste you're going to love.